What if I told you about a battle where an army of 100,000 men was utterly defeated, without an enemy ever showing up? In 1788, near a small town called Karansebes, the Austrian army didn't just lose a battle, they accidentally declared war on themselves, and they thought they were winning. Before we dive into this military catastrophe, let's set the stage. The year is 1788, and the once mighty Habsburg Empire is at war with the Ottoman Turks. Emperor Joseph II, son of the famous Maria Theresa, was desperate to prove himself. His military reforms were unpopular, his health was failing, and he needed a big win against the Ottomans. His army was a multinational force: Austrians, Hungarians, Italians, Slavs, and more. Nearly 100,000 strong, but with one critical weakness: most soldiers could not understand each other's languages. By September 17th, after weeks of grueling marches through hostile territory, morale was quite low, and that's when they made camp near the Timish River, close to Karansebes. So what turns a routine military operation into history's most ridiculous disaster? Two ingredients: darkness and alcohol. As night fell, a group of Hungarian hussar cavalry crossed the river to scout for Ottoman forces. These elite light cavalry were the rock stars of the 18th century military, flashy, confident, and notoriously thirsty. Finding no enemy troops, they instead discovered something far more interesting: local Romani merchants selling schnapps. After weeks of dirty water and stale rations, this was liquid gold. A deal was quickly struck. Money changed hands, and the drinking began. By all accounts, it was going splendidly, until elements of the infantry arrived. Now, if you know anything about military culture, infantry and cavalry mix about as well as cats and bathtubs. The foot soldiers demanded to join the party. The hussars refused to share. Words were exchanged in at least 5 different languages. No one fully understood anyone else, but everyone understood the universal language of get your own booze. Then someone, and history doesn't record who, shouted 2 words that would unravel an entire army: "Turks! Turks!" And just like that, the match hit the powder keg. A shot was fired, then dozens more. In the darkness, with the language barriers, there was no way to communicate that there were no Turks present. The hussars, now thoroughly panicked, raced back across the river toward the safety of their own camp. But to the sentries watching in the darkness, this looked exactly like an Ottoman cavalry charge. The alarm spread. Regiments that had been sound asleep moments before scrambled into formation, loading their muskets and preparing to repel the Turkish attack. When the hussars galloped into camp shouting about an attack, it only confirmed everyone's worst fears. No one realized they were firing on their own men. As more units joined the fight, the confusion multiplied. Some regiments thought they were under attack from the front. Others were sure the attack was coming from behind. Everyone was shooting at someone, and everyone was getting shot at. Think this is bad? Wait until you see what the emperor does next. Emperor Joseph II himself tried to restore order, but in the darkness, when he shouted, "Halt! Halt!" in German, many soldiers heard, "Allah! Allah!" which they mistook for the Muslim battle cry. Rather than stopping, they fought even harder against this confirmed Ottoman presence. As the night wore on, the situation deteriorated from chaos to catastrophe. The army had effectively split into 2 parts, each convinced the other was the Ottoman force. Command and control collapsed completely. Regiments fired on anything that moved. Cavalry charged infantry. Artillery bombarded their own forces, and thousands of soldiers simply fled into the night. Emperor Joseph was thrown from his horse into a stream, nearly trampled in the confusion. According to some accounts, he spent the night sheltering in a mill, watching his grand army disintegrate before his eyes. By dawn, the Austrian army had completely scattered. Self-inflicted casualties numbered between 150 and 1,200 dead or wounded. But the true casualty was something less tangible. Their fighting capability as a unified force was utterly destroyed. And here's the punchline to history's darkest military joke. When the Ottoman forces arrived at Karansebes 2 days later, they found no enemy to fight, just abandoned equipment and confusion. The town of Karansebes fell without resistance. The Ottomans simply walked in and captured valuable Austrian artillery, supplies, and territory without firing a single shot. For Emperor Joseph, already in failing health, this humiliation was devastating. He would die just 2 years later, his military reforms in tatters. The Habsburg Empire would eventually win the war, but only after Joseph was replaced by more competent leadership. Today, in the small Romanian city of Karansebes, there are no grand monuments to this bizarre battle, just quiet streets where one of history's strangest military disasters unfolded. If you enjoyed this strange tale from history, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time.